Let me introduce myself. My name is Racee Matice, and I'm a yoga instructor. I've taught for Kentwood Parks and Rec on a few different occasions, and there's also a couple of studios that I teach in the area as well. Um, Unfortunately, though, as you all are well aware, I haven't been able to teach in the studio very much lately. In fact, not at all. So it's with pleasure that I record this little half-hour segment of a yoga practice to share with you as part of your 14-day challenge of things to do at home. So hopefully we have maybe some more practice yogis, but also I hope that we have some people brand new to yoga trying this out tonight as well, just because the whole reason I teach is because I love yoga and I feel like it is something that can make enormous positive effects in people's lives. So let's go ahead and get started. If you don't happen to have a yoga mat, you can certainly do this practice at home. Just be mindful that the mat is there to kind of help ground you and help you to not slip in poses where your feet are a little bit wider. So if you're on a hard floor, maybe take off socks so that you're not slipping. You could use a beach towel or something like that also for a little bit of padding or comfort. You'll notice that right now I am practicing on a carpeted floor, which is not ideal, but unfortunately my home doesn't have a hardwood floor and a space large enough for me to do this. So ideally my mat would be on a hardwood floor. Let's go ahead and take a seated position. If you also happen to have a couple other things available, have them close by. So a couple things that we use when practicing yoga are yoga blocks. So this just helps give you a little bit of height in certain poses, so it brings the floor up a little bit closer to you where you can reach it. And then also have maybe a strap handy, or it could be a belt or kind of a stronger, sturdier scarf too. So once those things are handy and you're in a seated position, go ahead and let the shoulders roll back and down. Palms of your hands can rest right on your thighs or knees, or you could even turn those palms up towards the ceiling. And then softly close the eyes. Let's take a few nice deep breaths here. So one of the reasons we start yoga like this is just so that you have a chance to be aware of something that you're not typically paying attention to. So typically you don't have to pay attention to your breath. It just happens without you even thinking about it. But because right now we're thinking about our breathing, it just helps us to connect the mind and the body together, which is one of the purposes of yoga. It's for us to get in tune with our body, notice how it's feeling, and then find out what it needs. So as you're sitting up nice and tall, letting the knees and the hips be kind of heavy on the floor, we'll just take a couple more nice deep inhales and exhales. And on an exhale, let's drop the chin down towards the chest. And then bring the head back up. Let's drop the right ear over to the right shoulder. So we want lots of space here on the left side. So that left shoulder, kind of pressing it down towards the floor. Good, inhale. Exhale, left ear to left shoulder. And let that right shoulder fall away from the ear. Inhale, sit up nice and tall. Let's roll the shoulders back and down. Interlace the fingertips behind the back. Now, if that doesn't happen for you very easily, then just press the palms of the hands to the back of your mat. So we're getting nice and lifted in the chest here. Good, go ahead and exhale. we're going to come into a tabletop position. Now this short little sequence that we're doing today is going to be focusing a little bit on hips. So we're going to have some nice hip opening poses that we'll be doing later on. But for right now, let's continue to warm up. We're going to move on to the spine. So with our fingertips spread nice and wide, and then our shins kind of grounding into the floor as well. We're going to exhale, round the back up. So we're tucking that tailbone under, and then we look back at the top of the thighs. And then inhale, let the belly fall, tailbone and crown of the head come up. Good. Exhale back to this is cat. And inhale, cow. Good. So shoulders should be right above those wrists as we do this. And hips are right above the knees too. Good. Exhale, let's come to a nice flat back. And then we're going to bring our toes together. So I'm in tabletop. I'm going to bring my toes together. And I'm going to sink my hips back onto the heels. And let the forehead rest on the floor. This is called child's pose. It's a great way to kind of start warming the shoulders, upper back up. Great way to warm those hips up as well. Couple things that you can do though, if your hips don't come back onto the heels comfortably, you can use maybe a folded blanket or a towel, or if you happen to have a block, you can always put a block back here and let the hips rest on that block. That way you don't have to get the hips all the way down. Another thing that you can do, maybe the forehead doesn't come onto the floor easily. You can use that block for the forehead too. Let's inhale back up to tabletop. And then from here we're going to move on to down dog. So we're going to tuck our toes under. And then we're going to press those hands into the floor, fingertips spread nice and wide. And we're going to lift the hips up and back. And I'll show you that again from the side. So from tabletop, I'm going to tuck those toes under. Fingertips spread nice and wide. Hips come up and then press them back. Chest goes back towards the top of the thighs. Good. Now you can put a little movement in this too. You can drop one knee at a time. Keep pressing those heels down towards the floor. Now if after a while your arms get a bit tired, you can always take tabletop. Either position is going to do some of the same things. So if down dog just isn't quite for you yet, you need to work on a little more upper body strength, feel free to substitute this tabletop position for down dog as well. Now from down dog, let's go ahead and walk our hands up and come up to a forward fold. Inhale, let's halfway lift. So hands come maybe just to the knees or just under. Or maybe fingertips stay on the floor and we just lift the chest a little bit, straighten out that spine. And then exhale, fold again. Drop that crown of the head down towards the floor. Good. Inhale, halfway lift again. Exhale, fold. Inhale, come all the way up to standing. Arms reach overhead. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, arms sweep up again. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, standing. Good. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold. This time we're going to step back with our right foot and take a low lunge. Now, one thing you can do, I mentioned yoga blocks. If you happen to have some, you can always plant the hands into a couple of blocks. That allows you to stay a little more lifted in this lunge. Couple more deep breaths. You're probably feeling this on that right hip. So we just breathe into that sensation. Left heel, nice and grounded here. And then we're pressing back through that right heel. Good. On an exhale, we're going to step back with this left foot. Come back to that down dog pose. Good. Inhale, tabletop. Exhale, back to that child's pose. Inhale, come on back up to tabletop. Tuck under the toes. Exhale into down dog. Let's step, jump, or walk back up to that forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale up to standing. Good. Exhale, hands to heart. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Left foot steps back this time. So giving that left hip a chance to start opening up. Little sensation, little heat there in the front of that left hip. Chest is nice and lifted here too. So if you feel like you're rounded in the back and you're kind of staring down at that big toe, bring that chest up a little bit. Maybe you're looking just at the front of the mat, maybe a foot or two ahead of you. All right, exhale, big step back to down dog. Good, inhale, tabletop. Exhale, child's pose. Good, inhale, let's come back up to that tabletop. Tuck under the toes to down dog. Step, jump or walk up to that forward fold. Inhale up to standing. Exhale, we're going to sit back in a chair. Unfortunately, the chair is not really there. So that means the legs get to get nice and warm and work for us a little bit here. So in chair, most of the weight's kind of in the heels. In other words, you should be able to wiggle your toes here in chair pose. Now, that doesn't mean that only the heel is pressing in though. We're not balancing back on our heels. Just underneath the bottom of our toes, right at that big toe mound, that's pressing into the floor too. We just don't want to grip the mat with our toes though. Toes should be kind of light here. And then our chest should be lifted and light as well as we relax the shoulders. Nice deep breaths because now your quads are probably getting nice and warm and working. So those large muscles are using up the oxygen here. So we need to take some nice deep breaths. All right, let's step back with that right foot. And we're going to take a warrior two. So as you step that foot back, we're going to place the whole heel down and that pinky toe side of that foot. So left heel is grounded now, and that thigh is nice and heavy as we reach out through that right leg. And then our arms come down to a T. We kind of open up to the right. So this is warrior two pose. A little bit more open hip pose than a warrior one. So some other things you can think about too in warrior two as far as alignment goes. If you were to take your left heel right now and draw a line back on your mat, if you drew a line straight back parallel to your mat, arch of the right foot should hit that line. Now that's just the goal. That's what we're hoping for. But if you feel a little bit wobbly, you can always come wider though too. So you could bring that left foot out towards the edge of your mat if you want your feet a little bit wider for stability. And a couple of things that I've noticed in the classes that I teach, in yoga too, sometimes we have this tendency to reach forward. But we actually want to bring those shoulders back over the hips. So if you were to look at me from the side here, so I'm not reaching forward, my hips are back in line with my shoulders here. Good. I'm going to turn back now so I have my sticky mat so I don't slip and slide. Inhale, let's straighten this front leg. My legs are getting a little tired here in Warrior Two. So let's try something different. We're going to straighten this left leg. Let's reach out now. Just as I showed you a moment ago, my shoulders should be above my hips. But for right now, I'm going to actually reach them forward. I'm going to have this left hand reach out and pull my upper body over this left leg. I'm going to send my right hip kind of back. I'm going to jut it back and then reach my left hand down to the ankle. Maybe I use one of those yoga blocks here. And my right arm comes up and over. This is triangle pose. So we should have a nice open chest here. In order to get that, the palm of my hand needs to be facing to the right of me. So it's like there's someone to the right of me and they want to give me a high five. Good. Couple more breaths here. Keep pressing out to that right foot. Good. Exhale. Let's bring that right hand down. And let's plant a hand on either side of that left foot. I'm going to come back into that low lunge. Good. Big step back to down dog. Inhale to tabletop. Exhale, child's pose, just for a breath. Because we're gonna inhale back up to tabletop. Exhale into down dog. And do it all over again for the other side. So let's step, jump, or walk up to a forward fold. Inhale up to standing. And exhale, hands to heart. Inhale, we're going to get ready for that chair again. So find that invisible chair, sink those hips back. Stay a little grounded in the heels, a little bit on the balls of the feet as well. Remember, lighten the toes, lifted chest. Good, one more nice deep inhale. Exhale, step back with that left foot. Watch out for the kitty. And we're gonna press that left foot down into the mat as I bend into that right leg. And then open up the arms to that T. Open those hips up. Now we've got Warrior Two. So I mentioned that right heel and thigh is nice and heavy, right, the front. And if we draw that line from that right heel straight back, we come to that arch of the back foot. The one thing I didn't mention about that back foot is that it's parallel to the short side of the mat, or it's kind of turned up towards the front of the mat a little bit. Your hip might not be ready for that kind of a rotation, and it might be parallel to the front of the mat. We just don't want those toes pointed towards the back of the mat. That's what we're trying to avoid here. And again, shoulders back over those hips. So if you find yourself reaching forward, not yet, We'll do that in a moment for triangle pose. So this is a really strong pose, right? Lots of muscles working those legs. Should feel really strong and rooted. Inhale, let's straighten that front leg. Here's where we reach the upper body forward, send that left hip back, and then bring the hand down, open up to triangle pose. Great stretch for the side body too. As you sent that left hip back and came over, should get a nice stretch in the whole left side of the body. Exhale, come on down into that low lunge. And then big step back, down dog again. Good, let's come down to tabletop. And then just sit back on the hips for just a moment. We're gonna practice one more good hip opening stretch before we kind of start to cool down. So we'll hold this for quite a few breaths. But one thing that you might want to have handy is a yoga block if you have it. Otherwise, as we get into this pose, just know that I'm going to offer a couple of modifications. So if what we do next is just not working for you, sit tight, keep listening, keep watching, because I'm going to show you a couple other things that we can do. So let's find down dog one more time. So tuck the toes under from tabletop. Hips come up and back. And then we're going to lift our right leg. And when you're ready, swing it through on an inhale. We're going to come into pigeon pose. So that means we're going to set that right leg onto the mat. And we're going to creep those left toes back a little bit so that hopefully our hips are coming straight down. We're just trying not to roll out to one side or the other. We want to be nice and straight here in the upper body. Now this might not, like I said, work for you. This is a pretty deep stretch. One thing you can do is prop this right thigh up. And you can do that with a couple of different things. You can use a yoga block and put that right thigh on a yoga block, and then that helps you stay a little more lifted. It doesn't press you so deep down into the stretch. You could also use a folded towel or a blanket underneath that right thigh too. Coming down onto the forearms might help you feel a little more comfortable in this one as well. But if either of those things are not helping and this is just too much sensation for you, here's the next thing that you can do. Go ahead and continue to hold this if you're good here. If not, know that you can roll onto your back and do upside down pigeon. So my right leg is up on my chest. So if I roll down onto my back, I can just continue to hold this right leg into my chest, and then my left leg is going to just hover a few inches above the floor, and I'm going to flex that foot, press out through the heel. So this is a great modification for pigeon. Same pose, I'm still getting the same muscles stretched, I just don't have my body weight pressing myself down into this pose. So we'll hold this for just a few more minutes. I lied, not a few minutes, a few more breaths. So a couple more inhales and exhales. So just using those breaths to help your muscles kind of relax and release into the pose. Knowing that a lot of these stretches, these poses can't be forced. It's simply a matter of breathing into them, kind of accepting the sensation that comes along with it. But of course, if there's any severe pain, something that doesn't feel right, Definitely it's more than just a good stretch, then certainly go ahead and come out of the pose. Good. Let's go ahead and come up back onto the hands. We're going to tuck those left toes back under and come back to down dog. You might have to do that carefully. You're going to feel maybe a little bit different on that right side after that deep stretch. So walk it out. Drop one knee in at a time. And then when you're ready, go ahead and lift the left leg. And we'll swing it through for pigeon here. So if you were doing upside down pigeon and you want to keep with that, just simply switch those legs out. If you were using a block or a blanket, go ahead and tuck that under that left thigh. And then we're going to creep those right toes back. Bring those hips straight down. And come onto the forearms. Couple more inhales and exhales here. Breathe into that sensation wherever you're feeling the most intense stretch. Visualize that part of your body. Inhale there. Good. Inhale, come on back up onto the hands. Let's bring that right leg forward, and we'll just come into a seated position. So that is just about our yoga practice for this session. Let's go ahead and take just a gentle forward fold here. Inhale, bring those arms up, get a little long in that side body, and then reach out towards those toes. Here's where you can use that strap or belt or scarf that I mentioned. If the toes aren't quite accessible to you, then just wrap something around the bottoms of the feet and then use the sides to pull yourself a little closer. So I mentioned yoga being a way for that mind and body to kind of connect, because oftentimes we don't really let the two kind of communicate during the day. We don't always check in with ourselves and see how we're feeling, see how we're doing. So yoga is a wonderful way to do that. Of course, lots of physical benefits. You can actually get your heart rate kind of going if you practice intensely enough and do certain movements in a way that gets your heart rate up. You could certainly use this as a little bit of a workout. Obviously, we're stretching muscles, lengthening them. And just the more you move in general, the more you're going to be able to keep moving the older you get. But then I think once you get past those benefits, then you start to realize how much yoga does benefit your mind as well, right? That body-mind connection. Just be a little more in tune with how you're feeling, maybe a little more in tune with emotions. And I think that's important right now with so many of us being at home and so many things about our lives being uncertain right now. It helps for us to just take a moment and check in with ourselves and realize that even though there are some things that we can't control, we can control how we take care of ourselves. We can control how we feel about things, how we respond to things. And I think that's very valuable, especially right now. So I hope that you gained some things from this short practice with me. And the way I would like for us to conclude or end things is for you to either take a comfortable seated position again, like we did just at the beginning, or I would invite you to take Shavasana, corpse pose, which is just coming to lie on your back. With your legs extended. And then your arms can rest at your side or maybe on your belly. And then wherever you're at, if you're seated or if you're lying down, go ahead and softly close your eyes. And now this part is completely up to you. You can continue to be seated or lying down and continue in this way for however long you would like to. So listen to your body. See what it's telling you. Do you need to lie here, sit here, just breathing for a moment, just noticing how you're feeling? Do you need a moment to just feel a little more grounded, a chance to just take some more deep breaths? Or maybe in a moment you'll be ready to get back up and go about the rest of your day. That is completely up to you, and only you know the answer right now. So I will go ahead and leave you with that. My name again is Racee Matice, and may we all know peace. Thank you so much for watching.